It's late July now, and I've pretty much left the pond all spring and summer. I haven't cut anything back. I pretty much left it, and as you can see, some of the plants are getting a bit overgrown now. They're hanging down. Some of them have started dying. This one's fallen down over the pond and is taking over about a quarter of the pond at the minute. The Canadian pondweed's completely out of control. It's taken over about 80% of the pond, and the fish are having to they've only got a few inches to swim above it, and gaps underneath it. So I think it's time to have a good bit of maintenance and get it looking a bit better. This particular plant looks lovely when it's hanging down, but after some time it tends to, the sections that are hanging down tend to die, and you do need to trim it back, and it kind of gives it a bit of a boost and it'll start growing again a little bit. The lilies, I tend to pick the dying ones away as the year goes on, try and keep them from rotting at the bottom of the pond. The fish always love having a little look at what you're doing and tend to stay quite close to you. The Canadian pondweed really has taken over this year, so I mean what I'm going to do is try and trim it back to the top right section of the pond and just have a little section there with it. I do like to keep a little bit in there because I think it's an oxygenating plant, and it does seem to keep the water a little bit clearer as well when you have it in there. It also offers a bit of protection for the herons, but I mean it has got out of control, and I have been trying to thin the goldfish stocks in there. I think I had about 25 in there last time I counted, and I've been attempting to net them to move them on to a relative's pond, but you get one and they just hide underneath this stuff, and so it's half the reason I'm trying to clear it out, really, to be able to clear some of these goldfish out, because they have bred again this year, and with 25 of them, I mean, next year it'll probably turn into 50 or something, so you know that problem does need to get resolved. I've managed to clear a fair amount out of the front of the pond and the side of the pond now. It's just at the back here now. I'm going to try and clear a little section out there. I've got an air stone underneath that log, you can see, which aerates that corner, but you know it's kind of getting overshadowed by this Canadian stuff, so I'm going to try and clear that section out and just leave a little section there in the middle, and that should be enough. This particular plant tends to grow quite tall, but what happens is you get a strong wind and it tends to fall over and lay on top of the pond. So what I normally have to do is I trim a load of it off, and then what happens over the following weeks is it tends to right itself and start sort of pointing upwards a little bit again. But the fish do spend a lot of time underneath this, so you get a lot of slugs and insects in this particular plant, and I think a lot of them fall down, so they're always sitting underneath there looking for bits and pieces. After going around doing this sort of work, you always get a lot of bits and pieces floating around the pond, so you just got to go around with a net, try and get as much out as you can. Keep an eye on the pumps, because I mean a lot of the stuff will end up sort of clogging around that, and I'll keep an eye on that for the next 24 hours and pull that off as we go. I ended up getting quite an amount. I ended up chucking that in the corner of the garden somewhere, you know, all the slugs and that. We'll have a field day on that lot. So I'm going to clear out the pumps. I mean, I do this every couple of weeks. The thing with having this many plants in your pond is it does make it more difficult with the clearing out of the pumps. You've got to keep a close eye on. This is only a small 900 litre an hour pump, and it feeds a bog fill, which is about 120 litres. It's the first time I've used a pump this small, but it does clog up pretty quickly. It's quite small, and I mean, as soon as you put it back in there, it starts clogging up. So I mean, I tend to do that every 5 or 6 days. Just give it a squeeze. The sponge gets a lot of gunk in it. But yeah, it's this bog feeder. It fills that 900 litres an hour. Whenever I do a bit of maintenance, I tend to put some of these bacteria balls in. I'm not sure how good they are, but I don't think they cause any harm. I normally put them into the straight into the bog filter, you know, and they just dissolve gradually and filter back into the pond. This is the 4,500 litre an hour pump that feeds into the pressure filter that then pushes it into a 100 litre water butt full of about 80 litres of beneficial bacteria. But yeah, I mean it gets pretty full up. The Canadian pondweed tends to gather on it when they root around and dig that up. So yeah, it is a weekly job I tend to do with this. Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier with the goldfish issue, now I've trimmed that weed back a bit, it is a little bit easier catching them. I have currently taken out 6 previously and put them in the pond a couple of weeks ago, just to let them settle in a little bit and get some of that ammonia cycle going again. I think I catch about 6 or 7 here, and I'm going to reintroduce them. I mean, what I've been having to do is trickle a little bit of feed in there, wait for them to come up and start eating it, then catch a couple, but then they go back down again. You've got to give it a few minutes, put a bit more food in, let them settle again, and repeat the process. It can be quite difficult. It does get to the point where they know what's going on and they tend to go down and they don't come back up again. But yeah, I think I got about 6 or 7. So they're all sitting in the bucket there. I'm going to put a bit of the Canadian pondweed I've taken out into the bucket as well, and that'll be going into the other ponders. So this is a pond they're going into. It's about 15-20 years old now. It does need a bit of maintenance. The water level's a bit low there. So I will be raising the water level, giving it a bit of a better clean, and I'm going to be adding a bog filter at some stage as well to get this water a bit clearer. So I've left the pond for a few hours now to settle down, and yeah, you can actually see the bottom now. You can see the gravel. I think the flow of water was getting restricted quite heavily by the amount of Canadian pondweed in there, and the fish have got a lot more room to swim about in now, so they seem a bit happier. Once I've built the bog filter on the other pond and it settles a bit more, I'll catch the rest of these goldfish in here and reintroduce them. And hopefully the koi, I'll see some better growth rates on the koi once they're gone. That's the water inlet there, and where the Canadian pondweed's been removed, you're getting a much better flow along the surface, so I'm happy with that.